Hello, 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 and welcome to the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Meyerson. Delighted to be here on what will be one of the last of a couple episodes that I'm recording for season 4 of the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. And this season has been so phenomenal. The guests that I've had on, the conversations we've had, and just the feeling that these wonderful people that are coming on are bringing such great books, thoughts, leadership qualities, programs. I mean, they are just smashing it in the world and they are really uplifting humanity with everything they do. And my guest today is, of course, very well associated with people who are lifting humanity. Welcome, Julie V.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Before we get started, I am going to read Julie's bio so we can get a flavor of what she's up to in the world. Julie is a holistic practitioner who guides people to heal and grow to live a fulfilled, balanced, and expanding life using human design, inner child healing, shadow work, and other spiritual modalities. I love everything about that, especially the human design piece. I'm a total geek for human design. So I'm so excited to have you here. And again, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I am excited. And it was really interesting because last time we spoke on the coffee chat, it was a while ago, and we had this one idea to talk about. And then now coming on here just before pressing record, it was like, nope, we're going to go in a different direction. And I love that flow. I love that flexibility, that trusting. And sometimes you just got to go with your intuition and what you're being called to. So I cannot wait to talk about human design with you in this conversation.
I love it. So, just for the fun and excitement of the listener who's geeking out on human design with us, I am a 1-3 manifesting generator with emotional authority. I am the right angle cross of planning. And Julie, go ahead and share what is your human design?
I am a 2-4 self-projected projector. So one of the rarer authorities, actually.
Oh,
And I have the cross of Sphinx. I believe it's also right angle cross of Sphinx.
oh my
And
gosh.
so that is it's an interesting one.
I don't know what it is, but every time I learn somebody's a projector because I'm a manifesting generator. So we're like a very like high energy, like waiting for the invitation. I'm so interested in projector life. My best friend is actually a projector. And before we knew that she was, when I found out about human design, I'm like, you gotta be a projector. She is like crazy about rest. Like she'll tell you, do not call me after 10 p.m. or before 10 a.m. Just do not. And when she needs to rest, she's resting. So I wasn't surprised. So, what is a self projected projector? How does that play out in your life?
So for myself, and I believe this is the case for most self-projected projectors, is that you tend to have a lot of like open or undefined centers. So a lot of openness in your chart where you're taking on from the outside world. And so usually it would be um the G center and the throat definitely defined. So that's what makes it self-projected because you're talking from your G center, which is your center of identity, your like it's the love center as well, and the center of direction. So obviously, for those who are listening, there is more to it, like in terms of the gates. But I want to kind of not dive in too deep if you're new to human design, but that's what's connected. And then the top two centers, which is the ajna and the head center, those can be defined or open undefined. I have both of those defined. So for me, it's the top four. And as a self-projected projector, we do not have any motor centers. So there's no extra energy. Now, some projectors will have a motor center, and then they have a little bit of that more energy, like maybe they can work a little longer and avoid burnout and not get sick. And whereas for me, I don't have that. And so our energy levels aren't like, I don't get that extra juice, so to speak, from the motor center. And it is interesting with the energy levels because I used to be someone who worked like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Back in my 20s, at one point, I think I had 6 different jobs. And, and I think that has to do with the fact that my sacral is completely open. So the concept of like not knowing when enough is enough, like not even having a clue. Like there's no clue. Like if you have a gate coming out of the sacral, and if you're like a non-sacral, like a manifestor, reflector, projector, but if you have a gate coming out, you have a clue sometimes when enough is enough. Like you kind of get a ping. There's still
Mm-hmm.
something with that gate, but if you don't have that gate, if it's a completely open, you don't even know. You
Mm.
don't even know when to stop. And for me, it was actually my spleen that speaks to me because my spleen is undefined. So I have gates out of my spleen. And so it's usually when I tend to feel like a cold coming on, cold symptoms, sore throat, exhaustion, like physical symptoms. And that's when I know I am overdoing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is interesting when you take the power of your open centers and you see what are they trying to tell you? How are they speaking to you? And that's how like my spleen speaks to me in terms of my energy levels. And so even if I do now where I'm more aware, if I do have like let's say 2, 3 days in a row where I have a lot on my plate and there's just it's life, right? Sometimes you need to get things done. And as a projector, you got to do it sometimes. And I always try to listen to my spleen. So when the spleen pops in, if I feel like usually it's a tingling at the throat or
Mm.
overexhaustion. And I'm like, okay, today we're doing nothing. And I literally spend the day like I between napping and just, mindless tasks, like more self-care, taking baths, maybe reading a novel, like something that doesn't require me to do. And that's kind of how I recuperate. And then for days where I overdo it, like if I know I'm gonna overdo it, if I know I have like an 8 hour day, I will make sure like I put breaks in between where I'm either doing a meditation or I'm just lying down or I'm just taking, 5, 10 minutes to myself in the car, taking a few deep breaths. Little things like that do go a long way because unfortunately, like the world we live in, the society, sometimes life pulls you to do a lot.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fascinating to me. So I'm thinking about, I don't know, unless I've been sick, that I've ever been able to like take an entire day to rest. I think I've been like set the intention, like I'm gonna sit on the couch and I'm just gonna chill. I'm not gonna do anything. I could probably do that for like an hour. And then all of a sudden I'm gonna be like feeling this like pulse of like, oh gosh, I gotta do something. Even if this something is like go throw in a couple of loads of laundry or like empty the dishwasher, oh, did I check the mail today? But I find it super challenging to completely rest. It's a very intentional practice for me. It doesn't feel natural at all a lot of the time.
And that's interesting because you are a Manny Gen. And so you still have the sacral energy. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like as much as Manny Gens, like you need a different kind of rest than generators. That's what I've noticed. Like generators, I
Mm.
feel like have this level of energy that they need to burn out through the whole day. Like they gotta burn it out or else they can't sleep at night. Whereas many gens, your energy levels are different. Like you need that rest, you need that nap, you need that moment of pause at some point, whether it's like within a day or maybe it's 2, 3 days after going. every mani-gen has their own rhythm. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, it makes sense. Like, okay, you take the hour, but then you still like your sacral is just calling you to move.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You know what I have found though? I'm like a huge proponent of getting rest before sleep. So you have that wind down time. So for the most part, a couple hours before bedtime, I am typically like the most I'm doing is like making lunch for tomorrow, setting up the coffee pot, taking a shower, getting ready for bed, setting out clothes for tomorrow. But I don't really do any kind of physical, mental work leading up to bedtime anymore. I used to. I used to actually think I was a night owl, but I'm actually not. I would just push past and get myself to the point of like getting that extra boost of energy. But it was really overtired at that point. So I was just chronically sleep deprived and, continuously, pushing past my point. So now my rest is always before bed and a little bit of time in the morning where I can just like be still and connect with myself. And that has been the trick for me because I start to feel like around 4 o'clock, I start to feel that like, okay, like now it's time to start tapering down, not ramping up.
Yeah, because many gens you can get a second wind
Uh huh.
and then just keep going. And then, then you said that idea of like being a night owl, but it's not really that. It's just you're not taking care of your energy levels based on your human design. And I do know like manifestors, reflectors, and projectors, like for us, it is also like downtime before bed. It is kind of like chilling, unplugging. And whereas generators, like I believe generators, as long as if they burn the energy through the day, then they can have a downtime, like watch TV at night and go to bed. But if they don't, then at night, there's some people that go to the gym at night. That would be for a generator. Like, let's say a generator needs to move and they were sitting at a desk for 8 hours. And so then they go home, they eat, and they go to the gym after. That would be perfect for a generator because then they just burn that last bit of energy that they have, that sacral energy, and then they can go home and go to sleep. So that is like kind of like when you look at it differently of like how, different people have different routines, but that's like the generators, that's what works best for them. And not saying that if you're listening and if you are the other types that it's not for you, but maybe get curious on what is your routine, get curious on what have you noticed for yourself. Like if you are a projector and you love going to a yoga class at night, there's nothing wrong with that because the yoga class does have the wind down at the end, and then
Mm-hmm.
that puts that downtime before bed.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. It's also making me think my husband and my son are both generators. And I'm on my little wind down. Like, I like if all the lights could be quiet and everybody's silent and it just would be perfect. And they're like sometimes like wrestling before bedtime, running around. Now that makes so much more sense. Like, they probably just didn't burn enough energy. So like for them, it's normal. And then they go to bed. They don't have any problem going to bed. And I'm always like, you guys, like it's time to wind down. But I think it's probably helping them. I think it's probably just I think knowing the people who are in your world, your significant other, your spouse, your kids, helps so much to know their design because I feel like I have so much more understanding and compassion and recognition for when I'm thinking that something should go a certain way or we should do something a certain way. Sometimes it's really reflective of what works for my design, but not somebody else's.
Exactly, because we want people to be like us,
Mm,
right? That is something that, if I can do it this way or if I do it this way, then everybody else can do it this way. And human design brings that level of compassion of, wait, no, it's not like this for everybody else. And my partner is a generator. And not too long ago, he had surgery. He had to just remove some hardware from his elbow that he got inputted last year. And basically he was off of work for 2, 3 weeks, but also couldn't do anything much of like the physical element. And there was one night he just, I guess he was just putzing around and moving everything. It was like he was tidying up, he was moving things around. I had a client appointment the next day, and in person, I have the clients come over to the house. So he wanted to like tidy up for me. So I'm like, by all means, I knew he had energy to burn. So I'm like, go for it. But he kept going, and now I'm in bed and I'm just hearing him like walking around, hearing him moving stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, he didn't burn his generator energy. And it's like there's that level of compassion instead of like getting mad of like, well, you should be in bed with me. It's more like, okay, he needs to burn the energy. Just, and I did check in. I was like, what are you doing? I did kind of like check in on him. And he's just like, I'm just tidying up. You have your client coming tomorrow. I'm like, okay, that's really sweet. Continue. But it's, I just knew he needed to burn that because when he goes back to work, he's in bed, he's done, right?
Yes, he'll be able to burn his battery. I love that. I think this is like such good information too. Like as you're getting to know someone, like, introducing them to human design if they haven't done it or asking them. I am like so curious about everybody I know. I'm like, wonder if that person is a manifester. Wonder if that person is a projector. Is that person a manifesting generator like me? Because it's just, to me, it's so fascinating. And then being able to go like a little bit deeper into understanding some of the incarnation crosses and, who's defined and not. Oh my gosh, G center definition, which you were talking about before, having your G center defined. Mine's open. And it made me realize the people in my life who must be defined. Like they have to be because they're always who they are, who they are, who they are. And I feel like a chameleon, like it's so hard for me to establish a sense of identity. And I always thought that was such a weird thing. But now I get it's just part of my design. It's just that openness is always there. And I love a reinvent. Like, I'm like, okay, now I'm into wearing pastels. Now I'm into wearing stripes. Now I'm like, I never feel settled in that. I always feel like there's like potential for something else to change.
I love that. And I do love the open G center because you just so flowy with your identity, flowy with who you are. And I think that for anybody who's listening, if you have an open or an undefined G center and you've done the classic like I'm gonna go travel to find myself. Like it that no, you're not gonna find yourself. You're gonna mold to whoever you're traveling with in the countries, and you're gonna be molding to different areas, and that's just a chameleon part of you. And I think that idea, I don't even know where it came in the self-development world, but finding yourself, figuring out who you are for somebody who has that open and undefined, it's not meant for them. For somebody
Mm-hmm.
who has it defined, then that is, there's some things to look at, obviously, to heal. But for the undefined open G center, it's you're meant to kind of go with the flow and just, depending on who you're with, and you take what resonates, you leave the rest. That's the beauty of it. Like you don't need to take it all on. The whole thing is to reflect it back to whoever you're around. And that's
Mm,
G center in alignment.
I love that. I love that so much. And it makes it just so much more fun, to use your words, to use the experiment of, what does that look like? And it's interesting because having an undefined G center, having an undefined head in ajna, I'm literally so open, I could like argue a point with myself. Like literally take both points and argue them back and forth and never get anywhere because it's very hard for me to be like that, this is what I think, this is how I feel, because I'm so open to the perspective of other people.
Yeah. I love that because I love, again, there's just such a beauty in that for when I talk to someone who has like especially an undefined open ajna where it's like you see all possibilities. I love that because I'm defined. So for me it's black, it's white, and that's all I see. And then when I have a discussion with someone who can see everything else, because I'm very open-minded. I'm like I have obviously my thoughts and my opinions, but I'm not like this is it. My journey has taught me to be very open, like get curious, to listen to the other side, see what everything else is like available. And so when I meet someone who has that undefined open ajna, I'm like, show me a different way. Show me that other possibility. Show me what what I can't see because I have basically like this one area that I just see. And so I love that because then they'll just continue throwing, especially if I work with a coach or a mentor. They throw so many ideas at me. They're like, you can do it this way, you can do it that way, and this way, and that way. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I use my authority to decide which one feels more in alignment, which one feels more right based on what, my authority says, which as self-projected to us is just talk out loud and then we'll feel something. You talk out loud, you listen to the tone of your voice, you see like as you're speaking when you're excited, when you're not. Like usually if I don't want to do something, I do this thing. It's really interesting. I've been noticing it lately. It's yeah. And I want to say yes because that's the people pleasing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or like don't want to disappoint someone, don't want to disappoint myself, or it's my thoughts getting in the way. But the minute I do that,
You're like, nope.
no, that's not, nope. And it's not even my head thinking. It's just that's what's just coming out. And that's the self-projected part. And every self-projected is going to be different, but that's how it comes out for me. It goes to this like
I love that. I love how you feel the body cue. Like that to me is so fascinating. It's kind of like um people who have a sacral authority that have the and they like for what however it sounds for them. What I realize with emotional authority is that I spent years saying yes in like my high emotional energy and then getting down to my low and being like, what did I do? I don't want to do this. So I realized now I have to feel how it feels in the high energy. So if it feels like a yes in the high energy, and then like, all the people saying like, if it's a hell yes, you do it. And I'm like, well, anything in my high energy is
it's
like
all the things.
that doesn't work for me. Then I have to experience it like in the low, like if I'm in my pajamas in my house and I don't want to go anywhere, but I made committed plans, like how does that feel? Do I still feel like I still want to get dressed up and go do this thing? And then once I come to center, then I can make a decision. And I've gotten really good at feeling what it feels to be in that center space where I can say yes or no. And the energy doesn't feel like very high and excited, and it doesn't feel very low and stressed. It feels very even keeled. So I've just become so much better. And also at recognizing when somebody's asking me something and I'm currently an emotional high or emotional low, and recognizing and saying, I need time to think about it. And I don't even really need to think about it. I need to feel about it. I need to feel it, take it through the full cycle, come back to center. And then I can decide yes or no.
And do you have like, when the yes or no comes in, do you have any body sensations with that?
I feel almost like a very calm stillness about me.
Interesting.
So it feels like a just a gentle yes or a gentle no. It doesn't feel extreme. It feels like, yep, alignment, nope, not alignment,
Hmm.
but not like yes or no, no.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And because it would be curious to see your chart to see how your centers are connected,
Mm,
because then that you can kind of see like maybe like why some generators or many gen will have more of a ping, like a physical ping in the gut sensation, and then why there's like others who may not. And so that would be like something interesting to explore as to like why
mm,
more you're more on the neutral. Like you have a defined throat,
mm-hmm,
so I would look at where that is connected.
hmm. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think I have a few channels bouncing around in
Yeah.
my motor centers. My spleen is defined. Sacral is obviously defined. Um, will center is defined. Yeah.
Yeah, I would look and see where the throat is connected, because I feel like if you're going to a place of stillness and you're using your voice to
Mm-hmm.
speak, that is that it would be interesting to see where that connects and how that, because I could either say maybe connects to like the solar plexus, the emotions, so you ride the emotion, then your throat just speaks. Could be
Yeah.
that, could be that.
I might that might be where it is. Yeah. I'm gonna look at that. That's a fun thing to take a look at. But it's
Yeah,
very interesting because I had so many years of uh being like, yes, yes, me, I'll do it. And now I'm like, I don't know about that. I think I need to take a little time. And that has been amazing because I'm not doing things that won't satisfy me.
exactly. Exactly. And this is the beauty of the experiment, is to put it into practice and to figure out what is it that works for you. And every like emotional authority is also very unique to the person. The highs and low, like there's some emotional authorities that don't have a peak and a low. Some
Mm,
have like an incline, you know, the build up, and some go high and to super low. So there's different waves of emotional authority depending on what, like which centers are interconnected, like what channel you have. And that's why I love the experiment of human design. When I meet with clients, it's very much like, okay, here's what you can try with this, but try different things. Like, don't try just one thing and then say it didn't work and throw it away, because that's not human design. Human design doesn't give you that one thing. Like you said, you don't actually feel the physical sensation of the uh-huh, nuh-uh. But there are sacral generators who do have that gut sensation. And for them, it's very obvious. And then there's some that it's not that obvious, or some say they have a full body, it's more of a full body sensation. Um, Everybody has their own way, and it's
hmm
so unique to the person. That's the thing, because when you go to the deeper levels, there's some aspects of human design that is literally by the time you were born. So it like that you need to have the exact time. It's so precise to the exact time of these elements, that if it's like maybe 5 minutes more, 5 minutes less, it actually changes. And so that's how it just makes it so unique per person.
Yeah. I that is to me, that's the super cool thing about it. The uniqueness that, you know, I was super into astrology before I was into human design. And I can remember just thinking like, if you take it at face value, just like you're when you're born, I'm Sagittarius. So like you just kind of take it at face value and you're like, huh, doesn't, obviously astrology people out there, don't come after me. I know there's a lot more to it, but I'm just saying there's at the very surface basic level, which honestly you can do with human design too. You could just look at it as boxes and each type goes in those boxes, but we know it's so completely different because of the amounts of channels and gates and definition and undefined. And I think it's the coolest thing to look at that. I know for me, just being able to look at some of the channels and the gates and being the cross of planning and that theme of like building togetherness, and to see how much that operates and plays in how I just naturally gravitate towards that. You know, it's just the coolest thing ever.
It really is. And that is one thing when I speak to people about their charts, especially when I have the one-to-one where we go a little bit deeper. At the end of the day, like you have been in alignment with your chart in examples. Like you know what that looks like, but you weren't aware of it. And so the beauty is like, oh, okay, now let's bring that awareness in. Let's continue working towards that. So for me, being the cross of Sphinx is as long as I work on myself and I do my own thing of what lights me up and I do my own, like basically going in the rhythm of my own beat and just focus on me, my energy just ripples out and inspires people around me in a nutshell. And I remember back in my late 20s, so during my Saturn return, I went through a breakup and I was in Hawaii. I decided to peace out to Hawaii for the week because I had time off. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Hawaii. I spent the whole week crying in Hawaii, but it was beautiful. Tons of palm trees and beach. And a friend of mine, I was talking to a lot of friends back home. They were, holding space for me. And there's a friend of mine who said, Julie, like, I never told you this, but because I was single like for a long time prior to that relationship. And she told me that because I was, single and I was doing the thing and I was just kind of, going on my own rhythm and just confident. She said that when she went through her bad breakup, she said, well, if Julie can be single and, have an amazing life, then I can too. And
Mm.
she said that it helped her navigate the breakup. And so she told me this when I was going through my breakup years later. And I was like, wow, like I had no idea. And then fast forward to my 30s, finding out about human design, finding out about the cross of Sphinx, like I had to read that, especially that channel. It's the channel that goes from the G center to the throat. That's the channel it's connected. It's the 1020. One of the channels is a 1020. And I had to reread it a few times. And that memory popped up when I read it. And for the longest time, I thought doing things my own way or like focusing on me and doing what I want to do was considered selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I ended up like recognizing like, wait, no, my human design says this. And then this is a story I told myself that I was selfish. So I had to do some inner work and inner healing about letting go of selfish and really working through that to be able to tap into my incarnation cross, my human design, and know that it's okay that I'm kind of going in the rhythm of my own beat. And it doesn't make me selfish because it's my human design. And
Mm-hmm.
it gave me that permission to be me, even though some people may view that as being selfish, but actually like if I'm rippling out and inspiring everybody else around me.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Yeah. I think that is such a cool perspective on it too. because once you start running the experiment and you start to really set yourself on the path of trusting your intuition, trusting yourself more, and really embracing who you are as a unique person, I think as we all start to do that more, it's really changing things. It's really making life more in an easy flow. I find it more interesting. I don't want to be like other people, and I don't want other people to be like me. I want people to be who they are, and I want to know more about them, and I think that's one of the really cool side effects of human design, that it is such a unique blueprint as a human being. And it really does celebrate that individuality and truly being authentic to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And the things that you uncovered human design, it's almost like, wait, nobody has asked me these questions, or no, or I have not like reflected on myself in this way. It's such a different way of self-reflection, such a different way of inner discovery that and that's why I bring it into, like, when you introduced me earlier, that's why I bring it into my practice. Like, it has the signpost to healing. It has the signpost to going in your own flow, like going with the current and not against it. And that's the beauty of it. Like, I use it, like I will look at a client's chart, and anything with the inner child healing and the shadow work piece, it's connected, it's in there. The signpost is there. It's so, like, it's kind of like it gives me that little nugget, and then I can just take that, and by asking the questions, by diving deep and reflecting with the client of their life and where they're at, then you just uncover this whole big thing, and you're like, everything is interconnected. It's all intertwined, and it's really, human design is really the coolest thing. Like, I just love continuing learning about it. And I'm sure as a 1-3, you love diving deep into it as well.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm definitely a down the rabbit hole kind of human design person. I've also enjoyed like checking out the perspective through the gene keys. It's it you would think that there would be a point where you would say like, well, now I know all the things, but it's not true. And I think because it's really a framework. It's not like you will act this way in all situations. It's like this is what might feel in alignment for this kind of way of interacting with people, but the circumstances change. So like what I understand about gate 9, for example, when I apply it to what's going on in my life now versus how it felt 2 years ago, is completely different. So pulling myself into that, one of the things that I like to do, I follow Emma Dunwoody, who has the Human Design podcast, and every month they do a transits episode, and they talk about what gates the sun is moving through. They talk a little bit about some of the other planets, and what that flavor might be for that gate being activated, whether you have it or you don't, which I also think is very cool because we're always sort of getting these energies coming through different gates, and we can work with it, and it can be really helpful if we're working with it. Or we can say, you know what, based on what's happening now, this might not be a great thing for me to work with in terms of the work that I do, but maybe it would be great with relationships. So I like that too. It's ever evolving. It continues to be something that you can use to help decide how you move forward with things.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the transits, because like I don't use transits to the T. I'm not always following them, but I do love to reflect, especially if there's just certain things like in my body I'm feeling, and I'm like, okay, wait, what's happening? Where are the transits at? As a projector, and if you are, especially if you are a reflector, so if there's any reflectors that are listening, your authority, you need a whole lunar cycle to make a decision because you are connected with the transits, because you have all your centers are open. Well, sorry, undefined, some open, but reflectors tend to just have gates. You have no channels. And so you're very connected to the transits. So like learning about the transits, you can really learn to understand yourself in another level. But I like as a projector, especially not having any motor centers, I like checking in on the transits because the transits will give me definition in those
Mm-hmm.
centers.
Mm-hmm.
They will give me sometimes it'll be a defined sacral or a defined spleen, or sometimes it's like all of my other open undefined centers are defined. And so when I feel like I have too much energy, but it almost goes the overdrive, then I still need to pay attention to that even more. Like I need to be more mindful of my energy. Just because I'm attached to transits doesn't mean that that energy belongs to me.
Mm.
It just, I still am a projector at the end of the day, so I still need to be mindful. So I love to pay attention in that lens. And the coolest thing, if you pay attention to the transits daily, like the sun gate, so the sun moves every week, but from every week it goes through the different lines like throughout the week. So there'll be a day that is like a line 1 day, and then it goes line 2, 3, 4, all the way to 6. So if you look at the properties of all the lines, it's just so interesting. So line 1, like line 1, you are 1-3, love to do the research going in. I'm noticing on line 1 days, I am researching. Like if I want to buy something, I will go do the information. I will research. I think there was a few days ago, it was a line 1 day, and I wanted to prep my Christmas gift shopping, and I'm researching which gifts I'm going to buy. Like I'm just going in full research mode. And I didn't even know it was a line 1 until I was like, I bet you it's a line 1 day. Line 3 day for myself. This is really interesting for myself because I don't have a line 3 in my profile. And so the way it pops up for me is things will bump into me. Like I will bash into doors. I will spill things. Like I am just like klutzy, and that appears on a line 3 day. And usually, or there's things going wrong, like there's a lot of rescheduling, like nothing is smooth, nothing is like, there's just like things that are just like not working as smooth. And then I look and I'm like, that's a line 3 day. Okay, that makes sense. So that is like, and so that's the fun thing about the transits is that you can tap into that. I've noticed sometimes when I attend networking events or I do workshops, they tend to be on line 4 days.
Hmm. How
And I don't
crazy.
even, yeah. And sometimes like I don't purposely plan. Like I'm like, oh, okay, that day feels good for the workshop. That feels like a good day. And then like I'll look and it's a line 4 day. I'm like, well, of course. Of course, my intuition is just like, yep, we're gonna do it that way. So it's really, I mean, yeah, the learning never ends. And I love that how you said it, like depending on where you're at in your life, like the teachings of human design show you a different lens, and then you learn more about yourself, like how it shows up differently. Like for example, the when I said earlier, like my self projected when I would go, like that's something I recognize myself in the past year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going into year 5 of my human design. Like I've done this like, and every time I'm learning something new about my authority, which is like the most simple, like the beginning stages of it. It's not even the deeper stuff. And so I love that about it because you're continuing to explore, you're continuing to learn, and it just never ends, which is really cool.
Yeah. And then, like you get to get comfortable with it, and then you can help other people on their human design journey. So I would love for you to tell us, how are you helping people on their human design journey? And where can they find you to connect with your journey, the things that you're offering?
Yeah, so you can find me on right now. I have Instagram, so it's at Julie's Unknown, all one word. My website is juliesunknown.com. So those are two best ways to find me. You can send me a DM. I'm always checking my DMs, like even my requests. It's kind of because sometimes things just get lost in that translation. And in terms of offerings, so I do offer readings, but I am trying to focus a little bit more on containers. So I am going to have something in the new year, which I am really excited about. Actually, my throat is kind of like starting to tingle because it's like it's one of these things that's been bubbling and
Mm-hmm.
and I yeah, it's like I knew it's been in the making. Like I felt it, but it's like finally feels like the right time using my strategy and authority. So I'm going to be announcing this like very soon. It's going to be a container where it's a hybrid. So I would say like it's a hybrid, like ma mastermind combination with like a program, a group program. And I'm going to start it off first with manifesting generators. So it's going to be a program for manifesting generators, like a mastermind style in combination. And what it is kind of bringing together a small group and experimenting human design. And kind of holding that space of like wherever you are at in your life, whether you are like, whether it's like business and personal life, like I believe human design is not just business, like you implementing it into personal in your day to day. It's so important because then it starts to flow a little bit more smoother, like life just flows. And it's to hold that space of teaching, well, like teaching the teachings of human design, but then also creating a space where you can come in and share what you've tried on, share what works, or maybe ask for guidance on some areas of, if you are wanting to launch a program, what are some ways you can explore based on your human design and having other Manny gens in the room. It's like the idea of like being able to bounce off what other Manny gens have experimented and tried on in their lives. And for me as a projector to guide you through that, or if you are navigating certain elements in your relationship, then we can look at your partner's chart and be like, okay, like this is how they navigate life and how you navigate life. So what is it that you like, how can you bring human design into your relationship? And it doesn't mean that your partner needs to learn about human design. It's more how can you use it to smooth out the relationship? And as I was explaining earlier, my partner being up putzing around, it's like, you're just kind of like, okay, cool. Like he just is a generator who hasn't burned his energy. And so yeah, the idea is just to create that space, that container that you're with other Manny Gens, because I have done in-person workshops in the town I live in here in Whistler. And one of my things that I tend to do is I ask a lot of questions, but I group people by their type.
Mm-hmm.
And the vibe is a whole other level. Like you put the same type together and they're like, oh my God, me too, me too. And they're just like they're so excited and that they found somebody who's very similar to them and that gets it. And so that's why it's a specific Manny Gen, not all human design types. I am open to opening doors for the other types, but I am going to trust the universe on when that comes into my reality. So if you are a projector, manifestor, reflector, generator, and you love my vibe, like send me a message and let me know that you would like for me to do a container for your type. I'm just starting with Manny Gens because as a projector, I received the invitation for the Manny Gens. So we're starting it out and that's going to start in January. So it is something in the new year. I am really excited. And I will definitely be sharing like the information with Kelly so she could put it all in the show notes. And
Perfect. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for you, Julie. And I'm so excited for the Manny Gens that you connect with, because I think it sounds like a lot of fun. So I feel like any Manny Gen is going to be like, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I definitely want to do that. And we'll put the information in the show notes if you're catching this before we've had a chance to put the sign up on it, or if you catch it in the future, we'll make sure the sign up is available in the show notes. So if you find this episode and you'd love to connect with Julie, which I would highly recommend, clearly you can tell from the conversation that she's an expert and definitely flexing into that line one energy of research and knowing all she knows about human design. This has been such an absolute treat for me because I love talking about human design. I tend to geek out on it. So it's so much fun when I get to do that with somebody else. And I get to pick your brain a little bit about self-projected projectors. And I'm so excited. I think right now, and we were talking about this before we came on to record, just the energies in the world. I think never has there needed, we've needed more the chance for people to understand themselves better, for us to understand each other. And human design is such an amazing tool to be able to do that. So I invite you all to check out Julie's world. You should definitely check out her website. It's beautiful, by the way. And make sure you follow her on social media so you can see when all of these exciting programs roll out. Julie, thank you.
Thank you
I,
so much.
oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. And you might just have to come back in the future if you do start another program and tell us more about what you're doing, and we can geek out more on human design.
I love it. Yes. And it's just because even I learned through all my containers. So the workshops that I've been doing in the past year, I think I've done a total of 5, is I've begun to learn a lot about people's journeys and the different types and where they're at. And there has been, I get a lot of people in my workshops from all levels, like people who are totally into self-development and inner healing, and they're in it in the deep. And then there's some people who are just starting and they come into human design, and I get to hear how they contemplate, how they reflect. And I'm learning how people take in this information, which is good, because then it's like, okay, here are different ways for me to share the knowledge. Here are different ways of how I can help people contemplate and reflect and use human design in a way that works for them. So would love to come back on, because like once I go through a round of like Manny Jen's, I would love to see like what that's going to be like. I don't even know what to expect, and I'm excited. Like, oh yeah, I love being around Manny Jen's. And I love your energy, and it's so much fun. The that aura that you Manny Gens have, like that you have, and I'm like, okay, I just want to be in that room and just watch you guys like bounce through everything, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yes, and it will be very good to have your projector energy there because it can be very grounding for those of us who tend to continue bouncing with not a lot of structure at times. I often joke that like structure is not like my natural state, so I've created as much as I can in my life so that I don't have to do the structure, like I don't have to create it as I go. It's all like whether it's technology, calendars, alerts, how I set up my office, everything is designed so that I can just manage in it and it will inform me and keep me organized.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that because that is one thing with when I find myself in a Manny Jen's aura, they all say like you ground me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like even in just like let's say like the inner child healing shadow work, like when I do a one-to-one, I will ask a question, and then that question is like it like goes everywhere. Like the answers go everywhere. And so what I do is I'm just like writing notes, because like I'm listening and I'm like, okay, that's good. That's good. But then I'm like, all right, what's our intention for now? And then I through the management answers everything, goes in 10 million different directions, like ended up like start at A, ended up at F, and then back to B, and then back to Z. Then I'm like, okay, now we come back. We come back and I reel back in. I'm like, all right, well, this is what we've been focusing on. Or if there's something they say that it's like, ooh, I can't ignore that. Then I go
Hmm.
there. But I pick that one thing out of the multi everything, right? Because like for managers, like you're just everywhere. Like not in a bad way, but it's like there's just so much going on. So it's just picking that one thing and it's like, okay, now let's focus on this. And then we can definitely focus on the other things, but there is a time and place for them.
Yes, I will tell you if you if you want to progress and get something done as a manager, find yourself a really good projector to ground you and keep you on target. They are fantastic for that. Well, I am going to let you go, although we could go on and on forever. But I will let you go get some rest for yourself, as I will for me. And thank you so much again for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening and getting all the way to the end of this podcast episode. I invite you, if you enjoyed this episode, leave a little love note for myself or Julie. Share it with a friend who also geeks out on human design or who you need to geek out on human design with you. We would love that. And of course, rate the show. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye bye.